New video of the shooting from the federal agent's point of view. It's filling out the picture of what led up to the deadly shooting of Renee Good. Investigative reporter Ryan Raish has been going through this video and joins us with the key moments and analysis.
Meantime, we have breaking news. Brand new cell phone video we've just gotten in showing a very different angle of that deadly Minneapolis ICE shooting. This video was obtained by Alpha News. Apparently, it is actually from the cell phone of the ICE officer who shot Renee Good. The video has already been shared on social media by Vice President J.D. Vance and reposted by the White House. I want to warn you, you will hear some expletives in this video. We don't know who says them. And just generally, the video is disturbing.
I'm not mad at you.
It's Michael Feinberg, former special agent in charge with the FBI and an MS Now national security and intelligence analyst. This is very different from the videos we've seen before. What do you see from an investigative standpoint?
Frankly, law enforcement officers overreacting to what admittedly might be some sarcastic and lightly combative civilians, but I don't see a situation that would require the application of deadly force. You know, the reason law enforcement officers are supposed to be vetted before they join and the reason they go through extensive training is that two of the qualities you need to exhibit the most are emotional maturity and an ability to keep your cool. And getting heckled, getting videotaped, anything related to those two activities, that's part of the job. Somebody filming you on a cell phone and giving you sass is not a threat to your life. It's not even a threat to your safety. It's a minor annoyance at best. And I'm also really curious, why on earth is a law enforcement officer filming an interaction with a civilian on his cell phone?
A recently released cell phone video has brought a new perspective to a deadly ICE shooting in Minneapolis. The footage, reportedly from the officer involved, provides a vantage point previously unseen, sparking public attention and debate. This incident has highlighted broader questions about law enforcement decision-making, use of force, officer safety, and public interaction.
They're not influencers. They're not social media posters. If you're there to do a job as an agent of the federal government, do the job. You don't need to be making content.
And I have not seen the posts that were made by J.D. Vance or by the White House, but I'm presuming they believe that this may support their argument that there was a reasonable belief, a justifiable belief on the part of the ICE officer that he was in danger. Do you see that?
No, I don't. And look, J.D. Vance was admittedly in the military, but he was in civil affairs. I don't know that he has any familiarity whatsoever with law enforcement procedures. And as far as I know, prior to becoming president, Donald Trump actively avoided all forms of public service whatsoever. So I'm quite sure he doesn't understand what goes into a law enforcement tactical decision. These are people who, not just reasons for propriety, but also for reasons of ignorance, really should not be commenting on any of this until there is a thorough, objective investigation.
Brandy, let me bring you back in. And I just wonder, as someone who has looked at some of this kind of investigative material before, if there's anything you see that's different from what we've seen in videos before, something that stands out to you, Brandy.
Well, one thing that stands out to me is the question that was just brought up: why is this person filming? And Ross did testify in December, at during the trial in December, that they do not wear cameras on their body. They do not wear body cam, and they do not have dashboard cams as well. Not saying that has anything to do, but they don't have cameras. So his cell phone would have possibly been the only camera he had. You know, I've seen a lot of these videos from every angle now, and I'm looking at J.D. Vance's tweet, and he says, you know, that many of you say that the officer wasn't hit by a car, wasn't being harassed. And I still don't see him being hit by a car or I think the woman said, like, I'm not mad at you. They
Experts
seem to be...
stress that split-second judgments in high-pressure situations are complex, and analyzing them requires careful consideration of procedure, context, and training. Beyond the technical details, the event illustrates how new evidence can reshape narratives,
I'm not mad at you. They
influence
seem to
public
be,
perception, and
generally
raise
sparring
ethical
with him, which we see in these videos a lot. That's correct. This is part of the tactic of these ICE watchers to goad sometimes and to execute or to enjoy their rights as citizens to film and be on public streets and stuff like that. I think what is very clear to me is that no matter what videos come out, is that both sides have made up their mind with a narrative.
This is a critical new angle. This was the actual vantage point of the officer. And we know that not many immigration officers actually wear body-worn cameras, but in this instance, the immigration agent was holding his phone up, essentially filming this encounter, which we can now see in this video obtained by our colleague Holmes Librand. So in the video, you see that the officers are making contact with Renee Good there. She's parked somewhat perpendicular in a street. And there's another woman that's there, which is outside the vehicle. And you can tell, as the exchange there with Renee Good, that, she's being somewhat pleasant. The other woman is, kind of mouthy. And, this is obviously a bit tense. She, tells the agent at one point, why don't you go get some lunch, big boy. You also see critically, and I'll get to this in a second, bystanders behind the vehicle. We've seen other angles. This one shows us, again, the vantage point of that officer. Another agent orders Renee Good out of the vehicle. This agent then walks around. That is the moment that she then takes off. And on that audio, what we hear, it appears that you can actually hear friction on the phone. It appears from other angles that the agent was indeed struck by that vehicle. But you hear on the audio, it appears friction on the phone. That could be from the vehicle strike. That could be from, the phone on his clothing. But then it appears 3 shots were fired after that. And then you hear afterwards, it appears maybe an immigration agent who was there, actually, use profanity, calling her an effing B, which we heard on the audio there. Now let's talk about the tactics for a second. So, I can tell you this as a former federal agent, that law enforcement officers can use deadly force only when necessary, when they believe that there is an imminent threat to their life. In this instance, you have a moving vehicle that's coming at that agent. Now, the driver, Renee Good, did turn the wheel to the right. So it appears that she wasn't, coming head on at that agent, trying to mow him over. But nevertheless, an agent in that split second, decision would have to make that calculation. Am I in danger? Is my life threatened here? Agents are also taught, what are other options? Could you move out of the way? And that's why this has been such a contentious issue here. The judgment, the decision of that agent to actually open fire. We've heard, obviously people supporting that decision, others being quite critical. One other thing I want to note is that when agents undergo training, and not just the feds, but law enforcement across the country, it is a cardinal rule that you are responsible for every round that you fire. And one key component of that is, to the extent that you have the time and you must be aware of what is beyond your shot, what is in the background. Here, it appears from that video that this other woman who had been engaging with the agent was quite clearly in the line of fire, but there were also other people that were standing behind that car on the sidewalk, and this is a residential area. And so I'm sure that will face some scrutiny as well. The officer opening fire at that moment, directly, it appears towards those other people beyond the shot. And then his partners, and you brought this up, Brianna, just the other day, his partners are there in close range as well. And so this will be heavily scrutinized from a tactical perspective as well about the officer opening fire. But again, just critical new video here that we're seeing, an important angle, what the officer would have been seeing in the moment.
Yeah, the other officers from the other vantage point having a pronounced sort of physical reaction as the shooting happens as well. It's a tense situation between protesters and federal agents that we have been watching unfold as we speak. Local and state officials at this moment demanding the federal government allow them to have a role
influence public perception and raise ethical and legal questions about accountability, safety, and the responsibilities of both law enforcement and civilians in tense encounters. The new video and its significance. The newly surfaced video is said to be captured from the ICE officer's cell phone during the encounter. Unlike previous footage, it provides a first-person perspective of the events, including the positioning of the vehicle and interactions with bystanders. Experts emphasize that this vantage point is critical for understanding the officer's decisions and the immediate environment. The video shows the sequence of commands, civilian responses, and the moments leading up to the shooting. Observers note that seeing events from the officer's perspective can reveal factors not apparent from other angles, such as proximity, speed, and perceived threat. This footage is already reshaping public discussions and highlighting how interpretations of incidents often depend on the information available, law enforcement training, and expectations. Experts highlight that federal officers undergo extensive training to handle high-stress situations with emotional maturity and measured judgment. Handling confrontations, even when civilians are sarcastic or combative, is part of routine law enforcement work. Professionals are trained to assess threats objectively and avoid overreacting to minor provocations. Analysts note that filming or being heckled should not automatically trigger lethal responses. The video raises questions about the officer's judgment in this case and whether standard training and protocols were applied appropriately. The incident illustrates how the gap between perception and protocol can escalate tensions, reinforcing the importance of continuous oversight, mental health support, and tactical preparedness in law enforcement operations. Cell phone filming during duty. A key point in the discussion is the fact that the officer filmed the encounter on a personal cell phone. Unlike body cameras or dashboard cameras, which follow established protocols, personal recording devices are not standard tools for documenting federal operations. Experts suggest that using a phone during active engagement may distract from the task at hand, introduce ambiguity in evidence, and create questions about intent. While cell phone footage can provide unique perspectives, it is not a substitute for formal documentation. This detail underscores the evolving role of technology in law enforcement and raises important considerations about policy, safety, and maintaining professional focus during interactions with the public. Public reaction and social media sharing. The video's release on social media has amplified public interest, with various commentators using it to support differing narratives. Some argue that the officer's perception of danger justified the response, while others criticize the use of deadly force as excessive. Analysts note that social media often magnifies selective interpretations, which can obscure nuanced realities. The rapid spread of footage contributes to polarized opinions and can influence public sentiment before thorough investigations are completed. This situation demonstrates the challenges of modern media, where immediate access to video evidence can shape debates, amplify controversy, and complicate legal and procedural assessments of law enforcement incidents. Observations from experts. Former federal agents and investigative analysts have reviewed the footage and noted that while the driver's vehicle was moving, it did not appear to be intentionally targeting the officer. The analysis emphasizes that law enforcement officers must make split-second decisions about imminent threats. Even minor movements or perceived risks can trigger responses based on training and personal experience. Experts stress that such decisions are evaluated against standards of necessity, proportionality, and safety. This context helps the public understand the pressures officers face, while also highlighting the scrutiny applied to any use of force. The commentary reflects the importance of separating emotional reactions from technical assessment when evaluating critical incidents. The interaction leading up to the shooting. The video shows the officer giving clear commands to the driver, who responds verbally in a calm, casual manner. Other bystanders appear engaged, but not threatening. Analysts note that this dynamic is common in public confrontations, where civilians may verbally challenge authority without posing physical harm. The footage illustrates how tension can escalate quickly when officers perceive potential danger. Law enforcement protocols require assessment of behavior, vehicle movement, and environmental factors. Observing the officer's perspective provides insight into why the situation escalated and emphasizes the complexity of distinguishing between perceived and actual threats in rapidly evolving public interactions. Use of deadly force and tactical considerations. Federal officers are permitted to use deadly force only when facing imminent threats to life. In this incident, the moving vehicle and proximity of bystanders presented a complex scenario. Experts highlight that officers must consider alternative options, the trajectory of the vehicle, the presence of other people, and the potential consequences of firing. Tactical scrutiny includes evaluating whether movement or retreat could have minimized risk. The video shows the officer's split-second decision, raising questions about judgment under pressure. Analysts note that such cases are often contentious because actions must be assessed against both training standards and situational realities, balancing safety with proportionality. Civilian perspectives and behavior. The footage also shows civilians engaging with the officer, sometimes sarcastically or critically. Analysts stress that such behavior, while challenging, does not justify lethal responses. Public recording of law enforcement activity is a common legal practice and forms part of civic oversight. The interaction reflects the everyday reality of officers operating in public spaces where individuals may exercise free speech. Experts caution against conflating verbal provocation with physical threat, highlighting that responsible use of force must focus on actual danger, not perceived offense. The video emphasizes the need for law enforcement to maintain composure while protecting public safety, particularly in residential areas. Bystander and environmental factors. The presence of other individuals in close proximity complicates tactical decisions. The video shows people standing near the vehicle, emphasizing the potential collateral risk when an officer discharges a firearm. Analysts stress that awareness of the surroundings is a core component of training, including responsibility for every round fired. The footage highlights how densely populated environments and residential settings heighten the risk of unintended harm. Evaluators note that the officer's decision must be weighed against the potential for injury to bystanders, demonstrating the complexity of operational decision-making in public spaces and the critical importance of situational awareness during law enforcement encounters. Investigative oversight and accountability. Local and state authorities are demanding involvement in the investigation to ensure transparency. Experts emphasize that independent review is essential for public trust and to determine whether actions adhered to federal policy and legal standards. Investigations will assess the officer's decision-making, the context of perceived threats, and compliance with established protocols. Transparency also protects the integrity of law enforcement by providing objective findings that inform future training and policy adjustments. The video serves as key evidence in understanding the incident, demonstrating the importance of oversight and accountability in maintaining public confidence in law enforcement agencies. Mental health and officer preparedness. Discussions have also highlighted the potential impact of prior trauma on officer behavior. While past experiences may shape responses to perceived danger, experts stress that officers must be assigned roles compatible with their mental and emotional readiness. Proper monitoring, training, and support systems are essential to prevent risk escalation. The incident illustrates how personal experiences can influence decision-making in high-pressure situations and underscores the importance of organizational responsibility in ensuring officers are appropriately positioned and supported to perform their duties safely and effectively. Shaping public narrative and media influence. The release of new footage and its dissemination by public figures has reshaped narratives surrounding the incident. Analysts note that individuals often interpret evidence to fit pre-existing beliefs or political viewpoints. The video challenges prior assumptions and underscores the need for measured, evidence-based discussion. Media coverage and social commentary influence public opinion, which can affect legal proceedings and policy debates. Experts stress the value of allowing investigations to unfold independently while providing the public with factual information. This incident demonstrates the powerful role of media and social platforms in framing complex law enforcement events, highlighting both opportunities and risks in the digital age. Conclusion. The Minneapolis ICE shooting, viewed through this newly released officer perspective, provides critical insight into the complexity of law enforcement encounters. The video highlights tactical, procedural, and ethical considerations in the use of force, officer decision-making, civilian behavior, and bystander safety. Experts emphasize that assessments must balance context, training, and protocol while maintaining accountability and transparency. The incident also illustrates how new evidence can reshape public understanding and narratives, reinforcing the importance of careful investigation, professional conduct, and situational awareness. It serves as a reminder of the challenges and responsibilities inherent in public safety roles,